Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome to our YouTube channel with new interesting video. Don't forget to subscribe my channel World War I, 1914-1918. World War I, also known as the Great War, was a monumental conflict that reshaped the world in profound ways. Fought primarily in Europe, its effects rippled across the globe, altering the course of history forever. Let's explore the key events that shaped this devastating war. World War I didn't happen overnight. It was the result of long-standing political, economic, and military tensions that had been brewing for decades. Several key factors played a pivotal role in igniting the conflict. First, nationalism, a fierce pride in one's nation, led to intense competition and conflict, especially in regions like the Balkans. Various ethnic groups sought independence from larger empires, adding fuel to the fire. Second, imperialism. European powers were expanding their empires, clashing over colonies in Africa and Asia, and fighting for global dominance. Then came militarism. Nations stockpiling weapons and expanding their armies, preparing for war, believing military force could solve disputes. To balance this growing tension, European powers formed complex alliance systems. On one side, the Triple Entente, France, Russia, and Britain. On the other, the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. But it wasn't until June 28, 1914, when Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist, that the war began. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia, and a chain reaction of alliances was set in motion. The war begins, 1914. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Within days, the world was drawn into conflict. Germany declared war on Russia on August 1st, and on France just 2 days later. Germany's invasion of Belgium brought Britain into the war on August 4th, and soon the war spread across Europe and beyond, involving colonial forces in Africa and Asia. Trench warfare and the Western Front. One of the most horrifying aspects of the war was trench warfare, especially on the Western Front, where soldiers faced nightmarish conditions. Soldiers lived in long, deep trenches, enduring constant attacks. No man's land, the barren area between opposing trenches, was often littered with barbed wire, craters, and the remains of the fallen. Battles like the Battle of the Somme in 1916 saw over 1 million casualties and very little strategic gain for either side. The war was a brutal test of endurance and will. Technology and new weapons. World War I also introduced new and devastating weapons, changing the nature of warfare. Machine guns, capable of mowing down waves of infantry, and poison gas, which left soldiers choking and disoriented, were used by both sides. Soldiers wore gas masks to survive. Meanwhile, the introduction of tanks in 1916 showed potential for breaking through enemy lines, while aircraft evolved from reconnaissance tools to deadly weapons, engaging in aerial combat. The war expands. While the war raged in the West, the Eastern Front between Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia was more mobile, but equally devastating. By 1917, Russia was in turmoil. The Russian Revolution of 1917 saw Tsar Nicholas II abdicate, and by October, Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks seized power. Russia signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, exiting the war, but conceding vast territories to Germany. In 1917, the United States joined the war after Germany resumed unrestricted submarine warfare, sinking ships like the Lusitania, killing 128 Americans. U.S. involvement brought fresh troops and supplies, tipping the balance in favor of the Allies. The Russian Revolution, 1917. By 1917, Russia was in crisis. Military losses, food shortages, and political instability led to the February Revolution, forcing Tsar Nicholas II to abdicate. The October Revolution saw Lenin and the Bolsheviks take power, eventually pulling Russia out of the war by signing the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk in March 1918. The war's end, 1918. By the summer of 1918, the Central Powers were exhausted. Germany faced internal unrest, economic collapse, and the arrival of fresh American forces. With successful Allied offensives and growing pressure, an armistice was signed on November 11, 1918, officially ending the fighting. The aftermath. The consequences of the war were profound. First, the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including massive reparations. This treaty would sow the seeds of future conflict. The war also led to the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, Russian, and German empires, creating new nations in Europe and the Middle East. The League of Nations was formed to prevent future wars, but its failure to stop the rise of fascism and the outbreak of World War II would prove that peace was elusive. World War I also transformed societies. It brought significant social and economic changes, particularly for women who had entered the workforce in large numbers during the war. The legacy of World War I is vast, setting the stage for future global conflicts, reshaping politics, economies, and cultures across the world. The old world order collapsed, giving rise to new powers, like the United States and the Soviet Union, that would shape the 20th century. World War I, the Great War, was a conflict that left scars on humanity, forever altering the course of history. For more interesting and historical videos, subscribe our YouTube channel.